Telecameras 3 and 4 working. Activate radio contact with the outside.
Love, wisdom, abundant life. Live a life filled with meaning, purpose, and a sense of accomplishment.
Can you hear me?
Welcome to the Teachings of Enoch. I'm your host, James Allen. You can contact me, 702-483-7769. That's 702-483-7769. Or online at teachingsofenoch.com. Let's get started with today's message. And thanks for tuning in today. Welcome to the program. My guest today is Officer Hernandez. He's from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And we're talking about cybercrime, how to avoid it, how to detect the cybercrime before it even happens to you. Some warning signs we'll be talking about. Officer Hernandez, thank you for appearing on the show today, and welcome.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It seems like the old days of robbing a bank, robbing a store, although some people still do that, there's more sophisticated avenues that people are using nowadays. And Officer Hernandez, one of the things that in the community I've talked about, especially people who buy or look at stuff on Craigslist, a lot of scams going on there. Some of the things that I've seen on there are personal assistant, from home type scam. And recently I was advertising something for sale on Craigslist, and they sent me a huge cashier's check. The item was only $100, but they sent a cashier's check for about $2,800. What kind of scam is going on here?
Well, you have to remember that with the invention of, or I should say the evolution of technology, you know, we see that it's become so convenient for folks to shop online, to solicit businesses online. And, you know, you've mentioned some of the places that folks can go to get some of these services. And so it's very important. You have to keep in mind that, number one, you're dealing with somebody you absolutely know nothing about. You know, so that's the first problem. And so when someone is offering services, you have to be absolutely sure of who you're dealing with. And that becomes extremely difficult when you're attempting to do this either on the phone or online. And
especially now with, it used to be you could pretty much easily kind of trace a call where it's coming from, but now with cell phones and disposable numbers like Google Voice, for example, it creates another layer of difficulty that the thieves can hide behind. Is it any, I'm sure you have some more resources on your end, but how does that make your job a little bit tougher as well?
Well, it's extremely difficult, especially you mentioned cell phones. Anytime that a phone call, anytime you're using cell phones to conduct business, again, you don't know anything about the person that you're conducting business with. So just because it's a local number doesn't necessarily mean that you're speaking to someone here locally. You mentioned checks. You know, checks is something very common where either the buyer or the seller will offer you more money than your item's worth. And something along the lines of, hey, I'm going to mail you this check. Go ahead and take whatever the item is worth, and then take the rest and deposit it into your bank account. You know, or I'm going to write you a check for this much, and you write me a check for this much. Well, you have to remember that when you get involved in this type of transaction, you're not only are you jeopardizing your bank account and your personal information, but you're also giving it to this person, and that person now has the liberty of being able to share it with whoever else is part of this scam. When you take a check and you deposit it into a bank account, you know, there's methods for that person to find out information about your particular bank account. So it's very important. I guess the best thing to do when it comes to identifying a possible scam is anytime they begin to ask you personal questions about your bank accounts.
Officer Hernandez, there's been scams going around, something called, I'm going to call it the personal assistant, where they contact you maybe through an online ad or something and say, hey, I need some help. You work from home and Evidently, these kind of scams are credit card purchases that the other person makes from stolen credit cards and then sends goods that they've purchased with that card back to your house, and then you're supposed to pack it up, you're not knowing that it's been gotten illegally. Can you shed some more light on this and maybe some warning signs that we can watch out for?
Absolutely. And we were just talking about any time that you begin to get involved in any type of financial transactions with someone you've never met before. That's got to be the key. You get a hold of someone that where you found an article online seeking assistance, and you've never met this person, and the person says, no, it's okay. You just have to work from home. Here's what my business entails. This is what I need you to do. Well, of course, again, a little bit of common sense has to come into play here when we talk about, who would be willing to provide you this type of information over the phone when you don't know who you're talking to, when you've never met the person, when you've never had an opportunity to check references. So me as a person soliciting an assistant, running the scam, I wouldn't call you and then provide you all these different credit card numbers and trust that you would do this for me and make these purchases and deliver the items as they come to your home. And what they rely on is the fact that there's a lot of honest people out there that are just looking for some work. And so that's how they end up getting involved in illegal transactions such as this. So think about what this person's asking me to do, and would someone that is legitimate, without knowing you, without knowing anything about you, would that person provide you sensitive information like credit card numbers? So that's got to be a big red flag there.
My guest on the program today is Officer Hernandez with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We're talking about cyber scams, how to protect yourself, and some warning signs as you're dealing with other people to see if it's a scam or not. We'll be back with more right after this.
Is that yours?
Don't touch it, it's Uncle Rico's.
What's it for?
It's a time machine, Napoleon. He bought it online.
Yeah, right.
It works, Napoleon, you don't even know.
Have you guys tried it yet?
No. So are you ready?
Yeah, hold on. I forgot to put in the crystals. Okay, turn it on. Kills! My back! Kills! Turn off! It doesn't work.
Breaking these rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. I wanted money 'cause I had none. I fought the law.
Welcome back to the show. This is the Teachings of Enoch. I'm James Allen. My guest is Officer Hernandez. He's with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, talking about cyber scams. We've talked about some Craigslist items. I just want to interject experience that I went through. Like I mentioned earlier in the program, I was selling something, a larger amount of a cashier check arrived at my house, about $2,800, and the item was only $100. It's interesting, Officer Hernandez, I asked a lot of my friends, hey, what would you do if you were me? And every single one of them, except one guy, said, run down to the bank, deposit that cashier's check right away.
Right.
And I was kind of blown away by the naivete of all these guys that I knew and kind of hang around with. And these are some educated people.
Well, I think, we have to keep in mind that, sometimes, especially given our economic situation right now, that anytime that someone can, perhaps doing the right thing, placing an item for sale, doing the right thing, selling the item, expecting a legitimate amount of money for that item, is quite the norm. And then you have the person that's trying to take advantage of you and says, hey, I will give you $2,800 for this $50 item, and all you have to do is deposit this check into your account. Well, again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You have to think about, what is it that this person is looking for? Obviously, if you're going to deposit this into your bank account, it has the potential to compromise your financial information, and so that's where the problem begins. You have to be really smart about things like this because that's how they find their victims, is that they're looking for people wanting to do the right thing. They're perhaps in a bad spot and could sure use $2,800. At least that's what it appears, until you deposit that check, and then you find that your account has been completely exhausted of all the funds. So you have to be very, very, very careful.
Well, and they play on our emotions, don't they? Because when I saw that check, I thought, wow, all these things were running through my mind. Man, I could do this and that, buy, help these, with the family. And so they really play on our emotions, and sometimes our emotions just want to win out, don't they?
Sometimes what you'll find is that they'll say, you'll get a check, and they'll meet you, and they'll want to purchase an item or conduct business with you, and they'll say, I'm going to give you this check. However, I don't have any way of cashing this check anymore, so your item is $100. Take the $1,000 check. I will give you $500 and give me back $500. And so the average person thinks nothing of it. They go, they cash the check, they come back, they provide the person with the with the difference, and you feel like, well, I made an extra $400 on my item, when in fact you've just facilitated perhaps the cashing of a fraudulent check.
Now, we've talked about cashier's check, fraudulent checks, these kind of things, and the scams that we'll find on Craigslist, people kind of trolling through there. What are some of the top scams that you see in your office right now, Officer Hernandez?
Well, I can tell you that the scams range from phone calls. Phone calls are very common. There's a technique that criminals will use, and it's they refer to it as phishing, and typically that's what they're doing. They're phishing to see who's going to bite on this, on the scam. They will make hundreds of phone calls, and someone, out of those 100 phone calls, will buy into the scam, and because it'll be presented as something extremely legitimate, something that doesn't sound out of the ordinary. And so the person doesn't see anything wrong with it, and they would go ahead. They go along with the transaction. Phone calls, very, very. I'll give you an example. A person calls you and says, "Hey, Uncle James, this is Tony. Or I'm sorry. Hey, Uncle James, this is your nephew. And of course, a person that, we talk about the elderly, someone that's, perhaps the phone calls are made for that purpose. Someone who maybe perhaps doesn't recall the number of family members they may have, and so that person says, "What nephew? Tony? Oh yeah, Uncle, it's Tony. Hey, listen, my car just broke down, and I'm in a bad spot. Wait, would you mind sending me $500 to fix my car, and I'll pay you back. Next week I'll call you and return the money." Well, most of the time it seems like something very sure, it's a family member, and they go ahead and send the money. That's very common.
Incredible.
Sometimes people making phone calls, posing as utility workers. Hey, I'm calling you from, such and such utility company, and you're behind in your payments. If you don't pay us, $400 that you're behind, we're going to shut your electricity today. We're going to shut off your water today. Most people, they certainly can't afford to live without their electricity. They certainly can't live without their water. So without any further research, they'll go ahead and they'll pay the money, not knowing that they're not paying the money to a utility company when in fact they're paying it to someone who's conducting this scam. Those are some of the things that we see quite a bit. Letters. We see chain letters that are sent. Hey, if you send this much money, you can make this much money. And the way the scam is explained, it makes sense to you. And so that's part of the scam, is that it has to be written in such a way that people almost look at it and go, this is too good to be true, but it sure sounds like it could make me some money. And so, again, like you mentioned, they play on emotions. Investment fraud, business fraud, identity theft, huge for identity theft. For our senior citizens, healthcare fraud, counterfeit prescription drugs. When you purchase things online and you believe you're purchasing one thing when in fact you're purchasing it from a company who perhaps is just a front, and you're not getting the prescriptions that you're paying for. Telemarketers, huge scam. So these are some of the things that we certainly have to look out for.
My guest on the program today is Officer Hernandez with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We're talking about cyber scams, how to protect yourself, and some warning signs as you're dealing with other people to see if it's a scam or not. We'll be back with more right after this.
Wow, yeah! You got a 65 Chevy Malibu with automatic drive, custom paint job too. I'll trade you for my old wheelbarrow and a slightly used sombrero, and I'll even throw in a stapler if you insist. We shared a quick glance Saturday at the mall. I never took a chance, never approached you at all. You were a blonde, half Asian with a bad case of gas. I was wearing red Speedos and a hockey mask. Come on, let's find that love connection that we missed. to the snotty barista at the Coffee Bean on San Vicente Boulevard. I know there were 20 people behind me in line, but I was on a cell phone call with my mother. Didn't you see me hold up my index finger? That means I'll order my soy decaf hazelnut latte in just a couple minutes. So what's with the attitude, lady? No tip for you. Got a trash can of styrofoam peanuts. You can have them for free. You can drop by on the weekend and pick them up from me. But the trash can ain't part of the deal. Only giving you the peanuts. Get real, don't have no hefty bag. So bring your own. Don't bug me with questions on the phone. Don't ask for help. Don't waste my time. And don't complain, 'cause they won't cost you a dime. Just ask yourself, do you want my styrofoam peanuts? You can have my styrofoam peanuts. Do you want my styrofoam peanuts? You can have them all.
My guest on the program today is Officer Hernandez with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We're talking about cyber scams, how to protect yourself, and some warning signs as you're dealing with other people to see if it's a scam or not. Now, if someone is a victim of these scams, I know at first when I had that check and I knew it was wrong, I debated, well, should I go through and report this to somebody? I went ahead and Google has a support forum specifically for their Google Voice product, and I looked through there, and other people had the similar scams using the Google Voice. So there was a link to a national clearinghouse for crime. And so it took a while to fill that out, but I thought, well, if one person can even save the grief of losing some money, I think most people would just assume forget about it and not report it because maybe it's too complex and too time consuming. But really, how important is it to report these kind of scams?
Well, it's always extremely important to report them, even if it seems like it's, okay, hey, I caught this, no big deal. I'm not out any money. I didn't give him any, I didn't provide that person with, the item that I'm selling. I didn't ship it. I'm not out any property. I'm not out any money. So I'm going to just let this go. It's very important, even if it's something as simple as, I'm going to go down to the police department and I'm going to just file a report and let them know that I placed this item online and this is the response that I obtained. Oftentimes, again, you won't know much about the person. You'll know a name and maybe a phone number, and you provide them this phone number, and that's it. I mean, could we track that phone down? Possibly. Is it important that you report it? Sure, because you may not be the only person that may have almost became a victim or became a victim of this person. So reporting the information, the phone numbers that are used, always helps. And depending on the type of scam, if it's something that's done through mail, of course that's investigated by a different agency. If it's something on the internet, that becomes part of a different jurisdiction, like the FBI, per se. If it's something that happens here locally, where you're a victim of fraud here locally within our jurisdiction, of course, then you would report it to that jurisdiction. If you're not sure, doesn't you can always come into the police department here at Las Vegas Metro, and we'll direct you where you would have to go to get a report. So it's always important to do that.
Well, my guest today on the program, Officer Hernandez from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department here in Las Vegas. I'm James Allen. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. We'll see you next week.
What's going on? What are they stopping for?
Love, wisdom, abundant life. That's my hope for you. You've been listening to the Teachings of Enoch. I'm James Allen, your host. You can contact me 702-483-7769. That's 702-483-7769. Or online at teachingsofenoch.com.